Sharon Mazel. She is a parenting and pregnancy expert. I'm so excited to be talking to her. I got a lot of really great questions from you guys talking about solids, but also we're going to be talking about some other parenting things that you guys had written in and wanted to know about. So I will bring her right on in and we will get right because there's a lot to cover. How are
Hello.
you?
I am good. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining us. We got a ton of really interesting parenting questions, so I'm really excited. Also, as a parent of a 1-year-old, I'm also excited to be talking about a variety of different things, but introducing solids, because just to give everybody a little bit of backstory, when I was chatting with you a little bit about what are the most popular topics that people ask you about as a parenting expert, solids are a big one. And I've done a couple different episodes on solids and just, different kinds of foods and stuff like that. But it's such a complicated subject that I feel like, of course, that's the biggest thing that people ask you about. And I'm excited to talk a little bit about that today with you and just get some more wisdom, because I'm at a phase in my solids journey with my daughter where she's spitting out everything except for puffs. So anyway, let's get right to it with the solids. Just to give everybody a little bit of backstory, of course, you're a parenting expert, but when it comes to solids, why is this such a complicated topic that people want to know so much about?
So, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be doing this with you. I love watching your journey with Lila, and I'm particularly just entranced by your hair saga. So,
I know. My hair saga is real.
but you should know that that is just so common. So, I've been doing this for, gosh, over 2 decades. I co-authored the What to Expect books, and now I'm really focused on Instagram and my courses and just really reaching out individually to parents through my coaching. So I've gotten like questions galore over the years, and one of the top pregnancy or postpartum questions is always about the hair loss. And so you're like, you're typical. It is what you're going through is completely normal, and the fact that your hair is growing back now is really perfect. Moms always get like so nervous because they're like, oh my God, I'm going bald. And I always like to remind them that you're not going bald, you're just losing the hair that you didn't lose when you were pregnant. Because when you were pregnant, all those hormones kept those hairs that we normally lose, it kept them in your head. So that's why you had like the luscious locks. So, but you're right. That's like, yeah. And I got them too. And believe me, I'm not postpartum anymore. So, but yeah, so when it comes to baby questions, right, moving on from pregnancy and postpartum, there are so many questions, certainly in the newborn stage, and then about sleep, but then feeding solids seems to get the most questions and anxieties and worries, because so much has changed, and the recommendations that we were discussing 20 years ago are very different than what parents are being told today. So that creates a lot of confusion and a lot of myths that get perpetuated. And it leaves a lot of parents just saying, wait, I don't know what to do, help me. And so that's why I love that you got so many questions, because it's really what parents want to know. And so hopefully we'll be able to clear some of the myths up today and also give some really good info. So tell me what you want to get started on.
Well, I mean, I think the whole idea of it changing so many times, especially over time, I mean, even when I'm, giving my daughter food and talking to my mom, it's so different from, when she gave us food. And, the foods have changed, of course. There are these pureed packets that everybody loves. There are puffs, which are very different. Obviously, there's so much more information out there about nutrition, what to feed your child, what not to feed your child. Allergies is a whole separate topic that people, ask a lot of questions about. But I think the biggest thing was, there is this whole baby-led weaning, and then there's also starting with purees, which is more traditional. And, I know my mom always tells me the little, Gerber jars that we used to have when we were younger. And so many more companies have that now, which is great. But what is the correct way to start with your baby in introducing solids?
So I love that the question that you asked was, what is the correct way? And I will tell you today, you're hearing it from me first, there is no correct way. There are some better ways than other ways, but
Mhm.
really what I always tell parents about all things parenting, whether it's about starting solids or doing any of the other things that we talk about as parents, is that you have to do what works best for you and for your baby. So if it feels right for you, then it's correct for you. And sometimes parents feel like they're less than because they're not doing it the correct way, and that increases the anxiety.
Mhm.
So there are two ways of going about doing it. You can start, well, the recommendations today, and this has changed, is that you start as close to 6 months as possible. It used to be that you would start much earlier. I started my kids when they were young, closer to 4 or 5 months, but now really 6 months is the way to go. And it's because research and experts and pediatricians have really and feeding specialists know that 6 months is when a baby is developmentally able to eat and to eat well. And you can eat that. A 6-month-old can eat purees or finger foods. And that's where the whole baby-led weaning comes in.
Mhm.
And when you're giving food much earlier, certainly if you're giving it before 4 months, a baby doesn't have that head control, that neck control, that torso, upper body control to really be able to chew, to swallow properly. Certainly if your baby doesn't have that neck control, could become a hazard, right? If you're
Yeah,
feeding, whether it's
of course.
purees or any other kind of food, if the airway can get compromised, we don't want that. So
Yeah.
closer to 6 months old is what is recommended now. And I always tell parents, there's no rush. And you probably experienced this, Katherine. It's so much easier before you're feeding solids, because
It
all
is.
you have to do is bring yourself if you're nursing, or bring a bottle. And once
Mhm.
you have solids, you have to think about so much more. And
Yeah.
so don't rush, wait till the 6 months. It makes it easier for you as a parent. And believe me, we have so many things that we're doing as parents. So here's one thing that we don't have to rush into.
Yeah,
So
it is definitely makes things much more. I mean, there's so much more to keep track of. There's also a lot more to wash and to clean and to travel with and be mindful of. And I think, for me at least, I was super excited about being able to introduce solids, but then the whole anxiety part of the choking aspect, which I've heard with a lot of parents, I was kind of like, oh, is it just me that I'm so paranoid about choking? But that was actually a big question that came up a lot, was this fear constantly. And I have a couple girlfriends who are about to introduce solids, and there is this fear of like every single, purees are easier because you don't have to worry about the choking. You can, they spit it out. But the giving them, solids, and then especially the baby-led weaning, there is like a constant fear factor there of, are they going to choke on it? Are they going to swallow it? Is it going to be okay?
right.
What's your advice on that?
So interesting. If you look at the science, there is not a higher risk of choking or gagging on finger foods, soft finger foods versus purees,
Mm-hmm.
or even versus formula or breast milk, which is really surprising when you look at it, because you
Right.
would think, how could a baby choke on liquids? But a baby can. If it goes down the airway, it can. So obviously, if you're talking about choking hazards like grapes or hard round objects, that's certainly a larger choking hazard. When it comes to gagging, for instance, and I know that's like the biggest fear, it's also, I get questions like that all the time. There is an equal number of gagging, or an amount of gagging, that comes with purees as it comes with finger foods. And the reason for that is because a baby's gag reflex, like some of us, we know, right? Where some adults have a stronger gag reflex than other adults. Babies have a gag reflex much closer to the front of the tongue than adults do. Ours is like pretty far back. So like if you put a toothbrush back all the way,
Yeah.
sometimes as an adult you'll gag. A baby, you don't have to go that far back on the tongue. So sometimes even things that are very close up in the tip of the tongue will induce that gag reflex.
Mm-hmm.
And that gag reflex is a protective measure. It's
Yeah.
actually something that parents shouldn't be frightened of, but instead say, oh, good, it's working, right? My baby
Yeah.
is doing what she or he is supposed to be doing. He's pushing the food out. But there's a misnomer that gagging is choking, and it's really not. They're very different. Gagging is like a forward tongue thrust. Your baby will make noise. Your baby's thrusting that food out. And choking is kind of an inward like gasp, because something has gotten caught in the airway. And it's actually quite rare for a baby to choke. It's not that it doesn't happen. And parents should be prepared, certainly. But gagging is very common, choking less so. And so I on my Instagram account, I have videos of babies gagging, and I always suggest to parents to go onto YouTube, go onto my account, go anywhere and watch, even before you start feeding your baby, watch lots and lots of gagging videos of infants gagging, because I know, which sounds crazy, right? But it will desensitize you in a way, because when you see your baby gagging that first time, whether it's on finger foods or purees, I mean, it will freak you out. It is very scary. And if it's the first time that you're ever seeing it, it will get you so scared that you might react. And that, like, if you react like, oh my gosh, what's going on? That actually could frighten your baby and then lead to choking.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have had, I've been feeding my daughter solids now, and I gave her some ground meat and she gagged on it and then kind of threw up from it. And my friend was there with me, and she has older children, and she said to me, well, at least that's her body doing what it's supposed to do. And that's a great thing that she did that. And I, of course, was so traumatized from it. I was like, we are done with ground meat. But it is, it's a good thing. I mean, the gagging thing it is scary the first time that you see it. And of course, your children, when they see you react to something, my mom always did that with us. If we, bumped our head, she would start smiling and laughing to kind of distract us from the fact that maybe, oh my gosh, we would be crying. So I think that's an important thing to kind of get you in the mindset. But when it comes to introducing foods for the very first time, I have a friend who's actually watching here. She has a little baby boy, and the idea of introducing solids to your baby when the time is right, and not wanting to start with things like rice or those kinds of food. What would be your recommendation of what you can start with for parents who are about to start that journey?
So this is also something that has changed so much over the years. So it used to be that we would say start with fruit or vegetables, and then a lot of people would say start with vegetables first, because then they'll won't get a taste for the sweet, which is also a misnomer, because formula is sweet, breast milk is sweet. When you start, you should start with whatever you want to start with. Really, there is nothing off limits, again, except for certain choking hazards and certain things like honey. But any food you want to start with, you can start with. You can start with bananas if you want to, or you could start with broccoli, or you could start with avocado, or you could start with eggs, or you can start with literally a piece of steak. And I know that sounds crazy, but you can. And in fact, if you give your baby a large piece of steak or a rib on the bone and give it to your baby at 6 months old, it's actually a wonderful thing for your baby. It's great because there's iron in it, which is why we start feeding solids. They don't have teeth yet, so your baby won't be able to bite off like a hunk of meat. So it's actually very safe. Your baby's really just going to gnaw on it and get some of those like iron-rich juices, and it will also start to teach your baby chewing. And that's what the whole exercise of feeding starting at 6 months is about. It's gaining those skills. It's gaining exposure to different tastes and textures. So I know that sounds crazy that you could start with a piece of steak, and some parents will say, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. And some parents will say, no, thank you. But there are no rules anymore about what that first food has to be. And in fact, what we used to think a good first food was, like you mentioned, rice or rice cereal, is actually not the best first food, because there's very little in the way of nutrients when it comes to rice cereal. So if you want to start with cereal, that's fine, but maybe try an oatmeal or a quinoa cereal, something that has a little more nutrition. If you want to start a fruit, maybe not applesauce, but maybe bananas or mango. You could even give if you don't want to do purees, if you want to start baby-led weaning, you can even give your baby an entire mango, peel it and just give your baby the whole mango and let your baby gnaw on it. So when it comes to baby-led weaning in particular, this is also something that is hard for us to accept as parents, but bigger is better when your baby is younger. So when you're talking about a 6-month-old, the bigger the piece that you're giving to your baby, the better. And I know that again, that doesn't make any sense, right? We think it has to be purees or small little pieces. But if you give your baby a big mango or a mango pit with just a little bit of the flesh left on, your baby will be able to gnaw with her gums and get the juices, get small pieces, and you're teaching so much. And so that's really the concept of baby-led weaning, where you're not just feeding purees, which is easy for a baby to eat in a way. It's giving your baby exposure to other textures and shapes and flavors, certainly. So any food you want, go for it.
Okay. So I mentioned before that my daughter's at a phase where she's loving puffs exclusively. Everything else, my husband's very into trying to have her be an adventurous eater because I myself am not. I'm a very picky eater and I could order off the children's menu all day, every day. So we're trying to introduce her to a bunch of different flavors. But she just, sometimes I find it to be easier, and I've talked to a lot of other moms, I'm just like, she's only going to eat the puffs. Let's just give the puffs. What is the best way to deal with that phase of eating for a child and wanting them to still eat the food, but not wanting them to obviously live on puffs?
Can humans eat on puffs alone? I don't know.
I know.
You know, it's interesting because she's not even 1 yet, right?
She just turned 1.
She just turned 1. Happy birthday!
Yeah. Thank you.
So as she gets into the toddler years, which she's just now entered, you'll start to see even more pickiness. That's typical. Even the most adventurous, I know, right? Just get ready. You're just starting. And so, you know, whether it's puffs or chicken nuggets or pasta or whatever it is that babies tend to, or toddlers tend to gravitate towards and really like, it's again, it's not a bad thing. It's common, it's normal, you're not doing anything wrong. But you're right, and your husband is right. You want to continue to offer food so that she can become, I see you smirking. You don't want me to say that your husband is right. Okay.
No, I'm sure he is right, but all the things that you mentioned that our toddlers gravitate towards, I also gravitate towards. So I'm like, maybe he's right. Okay, continue.
Maybe he's right. So the idea is to continue to expose her to foods. Never put pressure on her to force her to eat it or to withhold the puffs, let's say, and say you can't have the puffs until you had your green beans. Okay. But to offer lots of food or lots of different types of food alongside her favorites. And this will become especially important as your daughter gets into the toddler years and gets even more stubborn, right? She's not really stubborn yet. She will get there. So it's called a safe food, right? And as long as what she's eating is healthy, even if that favorite food is healthy, you know, if you told me that her favorite food is, you know, I don't know, chocolate chip cookies or chocolate ice cream, which is my favorite food, but then I would say, okay, let's rejigger a little bit. But puffs, you know, there is some nutrition there. Mm-hmm. So offer the puffs alongside the salmon or alongside the cheese or the yogurt or the apricots or whatever it is. And then encourage her to eat what she wants on the tray, on the table, without pressure. And so if at a meal she only eats puffs, take a deep breath and say, okay, that was lunch. Let's see what happens at dinner. And if at dinner she also only eats puffs, that's okay too. One meal or even one day is not what you should be looking at. You should really take a step back and look at the whole week. What did her week look like? What did she eat during that week? So if she got a little bit of broccoli or a little bit of fish or a little bit of eggs or a little bit of cauliflower and a lot of puffs, then that was a good week. So it's really so it's about relaxing our expectations as parents of what our children should be eating and really letting them self-feed. So of course, it's about providing and offering to them and giving them the opportunity to explore foods. And what's so interesting, the research shows that it takes a baby or toddlers up to 15 tries before they will happily or readily accept certain foods. So if you've tried, I don't know, broccoli or avocado, right? Wasn't avocado an issue that she wouldn't take avocado in the while, right?
That's the only baby who's not going to have avocado. I was like, she doesn't like avocado.
But she does now, right? Now she eats it?
Yeah, she eats it and she'll play with it. And then she, you know, majority of the food ends up on the floor, which I hear is very common. And so, but I also, you know, there was just a moment recently that my friend just reminded me of where I was trying to get her to have salmon and she loves yogurt. That's like another safe food for her. And I did, of course, exactly what my mom did that I always complained to her about. And I put the yogurt on the salmon and she ate the salmon. So I disguised it, and then she, of course, just happily consumed salmon for the first time, and so it was. I felt successful.
And that is a success, and you should celebrate those wins. And then maybe next time she'll see the salmon alone, and she'll be like, "Oh, I remember this, and I didn't hate it," or "I remember this, and today I'm not interested."
Right.
But the repeated exposure will really acclimate her to food, and then it may take a lot of tries and repetition and repeat exposure for any child to want to readily accept the food. And I think that that's something to remind ourselves as parents often, that, you know, just like a baby isn't going to know how to ride a bike the first time she gets herself, you put her on a bike.
Yeah.
It's repeated exposure, just like she, you know, it's going to take a baby repeated opportunities to learn how to walk. Everything takes time. Food is the same way. And so, yes, there are babies, and we've seen them all, where you put food there and they just eat it no matter what it is. Yeah. And that's normal, as is a baby who looks at it and throws it off the tray for, you know, 20 times. And then, but eventually, like with the avocado, she's like, okay, I've seen this enough times. I've played with it. I've mushed it. I've smashed it in my hair. But you know what? I'm going to put it in my mouth today. And hey, it wasn't so horrible. So it's those kind of things that will take time. And, you know, even if a baby eats, let's say eats it once, and then you think that they like it, and then they just don't want to look at it again for the next 10 times, don't give up. Don't like pigeonhole a child and say, oh, she doesn't like X or he doesn't like Y.
Okay, that's a good thing to keep in mind. I want to also just kind of branching off of solids. I reposted a post that you shared yesterday, which I thought was really great, talking just about toys and the idea of less is more. I got a ton of comments about texts from my friends, comments on Instagram, just about the importance of that and people not talking enough about that. We live in, I remember when I first had my daughter, people started sending me all of these baby Einstein things and things to, you know, get your child to start educating themselves and looking at things and growing at a very early age. And then on the contrary to that, it might actually have been on your account that I saw, like, your child doesn't need all of these, you know, educational toys. Just simply having time and interaction with you is enough. And when I posted that yesterday, especially as my daughter gets older, just had a birthday, there is, I had learned about toy rotation and the importance of that. So, you know, there's not so much. But even when I was little, my mom, we talked about just, you know, there's so much stuff. And I think as a parent, you want to, you know, fall into these holes of like, oh, I need to get that for my daughter. I need to get that for my baby. And what are your kind of tips on that? So we're not in a world where we're constantly getting things, constantly giving things to our children, and just the idea of less is more.
It's such a great question, and you're right. It's such a it's a topic that parents really are talking about more, which I love, because it is, we do live in a very conspicuous consumption environment, and those toys are just so cute, and we want to buy them, and we want to put them in the house, and we want to see our babies play with them. But it can get very overwhelming for a child, especially a young child, a 6-month-old, a 1-year-old, an 18-month-old, when there are just so many things out in the playroom, right, or in the living room floor. And what we want our children to do is be able to learn from their environment, from us as parents, from people who love them. We want them to be able to learn through books, through language, through observation, going outside, or just even looking indoors at, this is the kitchen, this is the pillow on the couch, those kind of things. And if we have 50 toys out in front of them, and they all are cute and adorable and educational, how is a baby who is so young going to be able to say, oh, today I want to play with the stacking toy, or I think I want to exercise my spatial reasoning, so I'm going to play with that toy. It would be overwhelming for us as well, right? If we put 10 things in front of us, 20 things in front of us, what would we choose first? And so when we have 2 toys or 3 toys or 5 toys in the playroom area, or the play area, then that really gives a child the opportunity to decide what he or she wants to play with, look at it, play with it, explore it, interact with it, and then maybe decide that they're not interested anymore, and that's fine, and then they can move on to the other one. but it becomes less overwhelming, and it really allows for more attention and focus. And it's not, and I love that you said rotate, because it's true. Like, we could still have all the adorable toys and the wonderful things that the grandparents buy and the friends buy and that we buy, but all at once, having it all at once at the same time can get very overwhelming for a child. And so it's a good thing to always keep in the back of our minds. And plus, I will say this, I have 4 kids, so it will cut down on the mess. And
Yeah.
so, when there are a lot of toys around, and just a lot, even in the toy closet or the toy shelf, it's hard to clean up. And then it becomes a battle that you're always struggling with your child as they get older, because you want to teach cleaning up. And it's much easier to clean up 5 toys than it is to clean up 15 toys. So
Yeah,
just something to keep in mind.
I also recently, I was talking to my mom about this, just because when it comes to having a baby, there's so much baby gear, and this idea that that I know a lot of people do, which is like, getting a group of 3 or 5 different families and choosing to all rotate or share that phase of gear or toys. And I feel like, especially for the toy aspect, I mean, the teethers are important, or there are black and white games that are, important for the infant phase. And then, at 1, there's like a whole other kind of slew of toys that are exciting to them. And again, it is, especially, I had a lot of my friends who said that your post was specifically geared towards grandparents because there are so many grandparents who want to be getting their grandchildren, things and stuff like that. But there is a part of you that when you see these toys that say like, oh, this is going to make your child smarter, this is going to make your child more advanced, you want to get it, but then you also want to be, having simplicity around your home and not having so much stuff. So it is a confusing marketplace.
Yeah, and you know what? Just because something is marketed to parents doesn't mean that you need it. I actually have. I'm just about to launch an e-guide that I'm going to be giving out to everybody who wants it, about the must-haves, the nice-to-haves, and the definitely don't needs for a newborn, for a baby,
Right.
which is really important for new parents to know about. But certainly when it comes to the educational toys, there really is no science that shows that a so-called educational toy will make your baby smarter, or
Yeah.
will teach your baby how to read, or how to learn, or learn numbers, or how to learn colors. There are many ways for your baby to learn numbers and letters and colors, and it could be as simple as you, as a parent, showing it in a book, or showing it, on a street sign, or saying, look at that blue bird, or the bird is blue. That is just as educational, if not more, than any electronic lights and sounds, flashing education.
Overwhelming.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
it's not to say that there isn't a place for those type of toys, because again, there's no rules really in terms of good or bad. Like I say, if it works for you as a parent, then it's fine. Nothing is bad here, but it's also not necessary. And sometimes as parents, we feel that if we don't get those toys, that we're doing something bad for our children, or we're not giving them all the opportunities that we should be. And that again puts a lot of pressure on parents. And I mean, my whole philosophy and mission is to try to relax everybody and get that stress level and those anxiety levels down, because there is so much information out there. There is so much worry about, am I doing the right thing for my baby, whether it comes to solids or sleep or toys or education.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say, everything will be fine. Everything will be fine. Do what feels right for you, what your gut is telling you is working for you. If you want to get an educational toy, sure, go for it. If you feel you want to go much more simple, that's fine too. And you know what? Both of those children, right, from both of those parents, will still learn how to read in 1st grade, and will still be able to graduate high school, and will still be able to get jobs, and it will be fine.
Yeah. I think that that's such a great thing or piece of advice to be able to have. And also a goal of yours is to simplify things and also have everybody relax, because my mom is always, also emphasizing that with me, is just like, there is so much information. And especially myself as a new mom of I have a 1-year-old now, but, especially last year when I had a newborn, it's like, there's so much stuff. Everybody said, you have to get this, you have to get that. And then there's a lot of, stress and anxiety that goes into to various different phases. If it's, making sure you have a bottle with them, making sure that you wean them, making sure that you start solids, that you have these certain educational toys, that the idea of just being able to simplify everything and also get people to calm down. That's why I was gravitated towards your account in the beginning, was because it had everything, very simplified of, some fun things for a 6-year-old will start doing, or a 6-month-old will start doing, or, what to do about tantrums, or what to do, with a 12-month-old, like those kinds of things, especially as a new mom, I find to be very helpful. And it's so great to have access to so much information, and it's also very overwhelming a lot of the time. So this idea of being able to simplify everything, I think, is so important, and also really helpful for so many parents in all different phases of parenthood.
Well, I'm so gratified to hear that. I spent much of my career writing 600-page books, and so now that I'm turning to really be able to meet parents where they are, because it is overwhelming to read these hefty books and to do your Googling at the middle of the night when you're frantic with whatever the challenge happens to be that day. And there's just, excuse me, so much information out there that it is overwhelming and nerve-wracking. And so what I'm trying to do is say, okay, I'm going to try to really drill down, distill what the information is, the evidence-based information, what the recommendations are, what the safety considerations are, but really get parents today thinking again, okay, what are the basics? Not that I can't think about something more nuanced. I certainly, have a lot of nuanced information and more in-depth information, but it's about recognizing that it's not so, if you chunk it into bite-sized pieces, then it becomes more digestible. And when it's more digestible, then we have time to take breaths, deep breaths, and be able to say, okay, you know what, I can handle this challenge today. I could tackle that issue. I could think about this topic, and not feel like, oh my gosh, there's so much for me to know and think about and worry about. And it's not to say, I don't want to be a Pollyanna. It's not to say that parents won't worry. If you're a parent, your job, you will be worried, period. There's no beating around the bush. But if there's a way to be able to say, okay, let's relax a little bit. Let's try to find ways to get rid of some of that feeling, those feelings of overwhelm. And if I've done that with one parent, then I feel like I've succeeded. So I'm glad it's helpful for you and all my parents that are following. And I love it. I love being able to, writing a book. I don't have that interaction with parents. Now I do, and I love it. I have it with my coaching. So I really love that interaction with the parents. And when you sit with a parent and just talk about, let's simplify things, let's get straight to the point, let's figure out what to do, what are the strategies, you just see like the shoulders relax and everyone just feels better. And then, maybe you could sleep a little better at night. Yeah.
I love that. And I'm so grateful that you took time today. I think we're going to have to come back and do another one, because we had a ton of questions also about, how to deal with tantrums, when to start having boundaries, how to deal with discipline when you have young children. So I want to come back and do a whole thing on that. This was so helpful today for me personally. And I know for a lot of other moms who had written in, and dads who'd written in, just having questions about solids, and also the whole less is more, and the toys is also a big and overwhelming subject in itself. So thank you so much for taking time. And I will let everybody know when we work out another date to come back and talk more about parenting, because it'll be interesting, especially as I go in my parenting journey, and to see other people's questions and to be able to have these conversations with you kind of as we go. It's very helpful for me, and I know for a lot of other moms who also and dads who are writing in and having questions as well. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I would love that. We can do like the journey along with Lila, right? The question of the month, right? So
exactly. And I think, and I know that I've mentioned this, but I found your account to be so helpful. So for any new parents or just parents in general, highly encourage you to follow Sharon, just because not only is your account also aesthetically pleasing to look at, but also just such great little nuggets of wisdom, very non-intimidating, very easy to digest, which is very helpful in a kind of information overload culture that we live in. So thank you again for taking time, and I will make sure to post everything about your account here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank
It was
you.
so much
Have a
fun,
great
and good luck
day.
with everything.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.